Back run of the end zone. 50-50 ball. Touchdown, Huskers. Nebraska wins its 5th national championship.
Giving you an inside look at everything going on in Husker Nation. This is the KLIN Husker Hour.
Kicks and deals the 2-2 pitch. Swing and a miss. Strike 3. Jackson Brockett has the first 9-inning no-hitter for the Nebraska Cornhuskers since 1954, and he did it on his 12th strikeout.
Sunset, got it! Underdog, and then one! Exclamation point! Pump the brakes!
Now your hosts, KLIN contributor Cole Stukenholtz and sports director Nate Rohr.
Good Saturday morning. Welcome to another game day edition of the KLIN Husker Hour. Cole Stukenholtz, Nate Rohr, Kenny Larrabee alongside. He's got us up on the StreamYard. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, the KLIN socials, the Husker Hour Facebook page as well. We've got a lot for you this morning. Volleyball continues their undefeated march through the 20th. Husker football in action a little bit later on this afternoon. And, of course, we will have a special guest today. It's Lincoln Arneal from, well, it's the Volleyball State Pod. It is Husker Max. He's covering all things volleyball, and he'll be with us in a little bit from the market-to-market relay race, as it were. He's out there running today, so he'll join us from the course in between his stretches. And as we look at this day and we look at what's happened this week, I look ahead of the calendar, Nate. Before we come back next Saturday, Nebraska football will have played 2 more October games. And I wonder how we'll be feeling about everything when we come back and reconvene here a week from today, because they're going to be favored in both games. Obviously, they're favored today on the road. And then the Minnesota game, which I don't remember what your pick was, but that was one of my losses as a 9-3 record preseason, just because of the quick turnaround. It's a Friday night. It's just a funky schedule. Minnesota's had Nebraska's number. They like to run the ball, which might not be a great matchup. And yet, I'm pretty optimistic about their chances, knowing what Nebraska has done this season, how they've responded from being down, responding to adversity, and doing things, frankly, that they haven't done over the last decade or so in terms of backs against the wall, making plays to win games, the Malcolm Hartzog interception, Raiola's long pass to Barney to flip that game against Michigan State, whatever it is. You have the sense that Nebraska's starting to get this thing rolling a little bit. They've got to keep the momentum on their side out east against Maryland today. But when we reconvene a couple weeks from now, this could be a 6-1 football team. Don't look now.
Yeah, you could be talking. We could be talking about clinched bowl eligibility.
Woo!
Which, my goodness,
is it something to celebrate?
New world. And you know, this 4-game October stretch, we talked about it kind of as a collective, that it was going to tell us a lot about this team and a lot about where this season was going. Yeah, the Michigan game would have been nice to win, but it doesn't quite feel like Nebraska's ready to win that game yet, or they're not quite there yet. But the importance of this month was raising the floor, was putting yourself in a position where you absolutely are going to a bowl game, and you're talking about how good a bowl game you're going to through the month of November, and not necessarily, oh, geez, can we find a way to back into bowl season? Well, if Nebraska wins these next 2 games, mission accomplished. And I think pretty notably, they're 2 very different tests for Nebraska, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, these guys make no pretense about wanting to run the football. They don't want to do it. They're going to drop back. They're going to check it. And that plays into Nebraska's strengths. But it's still a road game. This freshman quarterback has shown a great deal of promise for them. He's shown that he can play at a pretty high level in the Big Ten. The question is how high a level. And it's the first true road game for Nebraska. It's not going to be a brutally hostile atmosphere like, maybe Penn State in November, though we'll see what that looks like by that point in the year. But it's still a different stadium, a stadium where you're going to have to provide your own energy and your own backing. And then next week against Minnesota, you're talking about a team that likes to run it. It's going to try and get big on you, and a team that has kind of had your numbers. So, we're going to learn a lot about this team's ability to cast aside the little stumbling blocks in these next 2 weeks. Like you said, Nebraska's favored today. They're probably going to be favored next week. But, how many games has Nebraska lost as a favorite, especially on the road in the Big Ten? I mean, that being a favorite hasn't been an assurance of anything. So can you win the games you're supposed to win? James Franklin is catching a lot of heat right now. First, because he didn't win, quote unquote, the big game, but more now because he didn't win a game he was supposed to win. And as a program, you've got to be able to basically sign for some wins on your schedule. I know everything in the Big Ten is going to be close, but when you're a favorite, you need to be able to win if this program's going to be good. If this program's going to go where we all hope it goes. So can you take care of business? Back-to-back games, some adverse conditions as far as a short turnaround. Can you just cast that all aside and get the job done? So we're gonna know a lot about this Nebraska football program and how much Matt Rule's been able to build it when we're sitting here this time next week.
Yeah, no doubt. And the way that the way I want this show to go, we're gonna break it up in the middle. We'll have some volleyball with Lincoln. And then later on, we'll do a little bit of a comparison Nebraska versus Maryland, what this matchup looks like. Right now, I want to focus on what the Huskers have done so far through 5 games. And one of the questions I asked Luke Mullen last week, Nate, was how much stock can you actually put in the statistics that Nebraska had been putting out through 4 games? Because 2 of them were such obvious mismatches, right? Yeah. You have the Cincinnati-Michigan games to compare, but Akron and Houston Christian were really throwing the numbers off. I think it's more fair to look at it now, especially in a few places. So just these are national statistical standings for Nebraska, and these are categories. They're in the top 15 nationally right now. Passing offense and scoring offense. Obviously, they ran up the score a couple times, but 38 points on a Power 4 team last week. Pass defense, we know they're number 1 nationally. That is not a fluke at all. No. 11 in total defense as well. They are 4th nationally in third down defense. Do you know what Nebraska is giving up on defense right now? What % of conversions?
I don't know it offhand, but I would guess probably about 25%.
21.9%. That is hot.
That's pretty good.
Penalties. Nebraska is 15th nationally, only 4.4 penalties committed per game. Turnovers lost and turnover margin, they're top 15 in both of those as well. They've only lost 3, and they're plus 1.2 per game. Mm-hmm. They've gained 9, lost 3. And then this is really the one that has flipped the way I feel about the season going forward more than anything, I think. It's just how good the special teams have been. And you don't have to look any further than punt return defense, 3rd nationally, -1 yard per game.
That'll do.
And punt returns, 16. That's 16.4 yards per game. That's 13th nationally. In fact, this season, Nebraska's got 5 games, right? Mm-hmm. Or at 16.4 yards per return, I should say, not per game, per return. This season, Nebraska through 5 games, 238 punt return yards. Mm-hmm. Okay, pretty good. Nebraska's punt return yardage, 2021 through 2024. That's 49 games, 225 less in 49 games. You can actually go back 2 more games before that, the last 2 games of 2020. 51 games, 225 return yards, 238 punt return yards through 5 games this season. Some of that is obviously Ja'Cory Barney's really good, but boy, how much of a focus has Mike Eckler put on this thing? Really turned it around. Credit to Dave Fight on social media, who posted that last night, by the way, breaking that down. But the way that special teams have become not just average, not just good, they're great at it.
Yeah.
And nothing, I think, has raised my level of optimism for this 2025 season more than the level of competency and frankly brilliance at times of the special teams units this year.
Yeah, and even the little bumps in the road. You think of John Holt, he had problems keeping kickoffs in bounds. John Holt kicked off 5 times last week, and they were all in bounds. And again, that saves wear and tear on Kyle Cunanan. That gives you a better chance to get the best out of him in November. Archie Wilson's punts didn't go very far in the wind. I'll chalk it up to a guy dealing with Nebraska wind for the first time and wind like that really for the first time in his life. But you're right. I mean, Mike Eckler has resurrected Nebraska's special teams, and what Nebraska's paying him, forget it. Whatever it takes to keep that guy in Lincoln,
the bargain.
Do it. Because he is a savant in that way. And everybody sees the fire and everybody sees the bouncing around on the sidelines, and all of that is good. And on special teams, necessary. I mean, special teams are emotional. They're running 40 yards and being in position to make the tackle. But as Matt Rule pointed out this week, he's also a hell of a teacher. He is a really good teacher. And those guys clearly have an understanding of the scheme, an understanding of what they're supposed to do, and they have enthusiasm for what they're doing, because it's never been a talent issue, at least writ large. Nebraska has had issues in recruiting specialists, and oh, by the way, they hit those.
Yeah.
But the coverage issues come down to players being out there, wanting to do it, and knowing what to do. And that was not the case. It certainly wasn't the case before Matt Rule got here, and it wasn't really even the case the last couple of years. That's the case now. The culture has entirely flipped, and it is, I think, primarily the work of Mike Eckler, and this is the guy we thought we were going to get. This is I thought Nebraska would be better on special teams. I thought they would be like this on special teams eventually. I didn't think they'd be this good this quick, but it's pretty clear Mike Eckler has pulled a miracle there, and he's as good a special teams coach as we thought he was, and it's obviously bearing results. It also speaks well to the idea that Matt Rule saw an area that needed work. Ed Foley's a pretty inner circle guy for him.
Yeah.
Or at least was. And he said, look, this is going to be painful. I'm going to have to bench one of my friends, basically, but I'm going to do it, and I'm going to find somebody who's great at this. And he did it, and they've been great.
Yeah. And as Matt McMaster, our on 1620 has mentioned a few times this season, he's really mad about the special teams being so good, because apparently all it took was just to go get somebody who was really good at it, and they could have done that 2 years ago. But at any rate, no, you just look at parts of what they've done on special teams, like just things that Nebraska fans have taken for granted for a long time, especially with the kicker and punter. Obviously, they've had their struggles over the last few years. They seem to have locked those guys down, and they've done pretty well, save for that one miss against Michigan. But then you have also just having space for a punt returner. Just that alone would be great. Yep. Nothing else, but just that. Have a guy who can make somebody miss. If you just had that would be good. Having a long snapper just doing their job and not being a factor. Like everybody but me probably has forgotten his name, Kevin Gallick, by the way. That part of it, if you have that, that's good. But all of it is clicking right now.
Sure.
So as the season continues on, and if you don't backslide at all, now you can start to look at, okay, special teams is a strength. When are we gonna use those weapons? They've run a fake, right? I think they probably have a few more of those up their sleeve at some point this season. We'll see. They've also got different ways they can use Archie Wilson directionally kicking. They can kick with both feet, clearly. They also have the ability to run block. They've got our ability to run return. Both of those you've seen very distinctively used. They don't look the same. Like there are times before where, oh yeah, we were trying to block this one, we were trying to return this one. Well, it didn't look any different when you watch the tape back. So having such skill and such a purpose on that side of the football, the third side, if you will. It's been such a weapon. So special teams, if you can keep that and not have any backslide, then you can really focus in on fine-tuning some of the offense and defense things that they'll have to work on. So it's gone really well, and that's part of why I think I may be changing my tune on that Minnesota game next weekend, because that was one of my losses preseason, as I mentioned. I don't know that I would factor it in as a loss this season, but we shall see. Okay, what we're going to do right now, we're going to take our first break. We're going to get to Lincoln Arneal right when we come back after this. We're going to get to volleyball. 15-0 now, if you're counting at home. 11 of those are sweeps. No big deal. They continue to roll, and they have another match with a ranked team later this weekend that we'll talk about with Lincoln, as well as a lot of other volleyball various things. Plus, we'll break down this matchup today, Nebraska versus Maryland. Nebraska going for win number 5 out east. More to come here on the KLIN Husker Hour on 1499.3 KLIN.
Elder
Giving you an inside look at everything Huskers. This is the KLIN Husker Hour on 1499.3 KLIN.
Quick pivot from the football team playing on the road to the volleyball team playing at home, and fresh off of a observation of a stripe out at the Bob, whatever you're going to call that. It's Lincoln Arneal. He's from the Volleyball State podcast and Husker Max. Lincoln is actually out at the market-to-market relay, so we're gonna get him in and out here so we can get back to his running duties. Lincoln, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, you bet. Glad to be here. I got the pre-race jitters, but hey, we're good talking volleyball.
Yes, anytime I'm sure you're ready to talk some volleyball. Well, Huskers are 15-0 now. 11 of those sweeps. And there was a little bit of a fun story at the end of the with post-match press conference. Danny Busboom Kelly talking about how some of the players went to a Tate McRae concert the night before the match, but hey, got the job done, right? This whole she's got a different philosophy, if you will, than what John Cook did. She seems to be kind of letting these players be themselves and letting their personalities come out, and as long as they're winning, why not, right?
Yeah, I mean, I asked her about that too. Hey, what kind of trust do you have? You let the players go? And she's like, well, I didn't know until I saw them on social media. So it's like, don't go and ask for forgiveness. But hey, Harper Murray was there. She hit over 400 against Washington. She looked pretty good for the match, though. Was no ill effects. from having what she said. The concert was fire. That was the term that Harper used to describe the Tate McRae show. So it's all paying off now. Could you do that against maybe a higher caliber opponent? Probably not. But Washington, get away with it, I guess.
Facing this team is on a roll right now, and sometimes dominance can create pressure. I mean, they haven't lost a set in almost a month. They've won their last 19 sets. They've won their last 6 by sweeps. You talk about them going to the Tate McRae concert. How much of Danny Busboom Kelly's challenge isn't so much, keeping the heat on, but rather keeping them loose and keeping the pressure at a manageable level.
Yeah, I think, Danny talked about this earlier this week in the press conference too. Like, they're not afraid to talk about their national championship hopes. They're very upfront. They'd rather be open about it, because it's when you don't talk about it, I think that's when you let the pressure build and let the kind of accumulation of expectations really build up and affect their level of play. So I think they're upfront, they're open, and one of Danny's big mantras is we're playing volleyball to have fun. So I think that's really infected the entire team, and really kind of they've embraced that, and they're not afraid to own the mantle of they're the number one team in the country and they have national title expectations. So I think being open about it helps a lot with the pressure that could build in the team in a similar situation.
Lincoln Arneal joining us here talking volleyball on Husker Hour. Lincoln, Rebecca Alec was recently added to the National Player of the Year watch list. They already had a few players on there already. In your estimation, 15 matches in, who has been Nebraska's best player this season?
Ooh. I think, to me, it's Bergen Riley. I mean, I think Rebecca Alex is definitely taking a big step forward too. Andy Jackson is also a All-American caliber player, but I think you look at the even distribution, Nebraska's hitting 320 something. Bergen Riley is really the centerpiece of this, and kind of being able to distribute and get everyone involved. I mean, Harper Murray led the team with 12 kills last night. Everyone's getting almost 20 attacks. So I think Bergen's really the centerpiece, the linchpin to all of this. I think that if they had to choose one leader, multiple All-Americans, but Bergen to me is the leading contender for Conference Player of the Year, and could be in the National Player of the Year discussion as well too.
How has Bergen's game, developed? I mean, she was somebody who was obviously good last year, no question, but it feels like she's even more consistent and more steady this year than she's been in her first two.
I think she's really adapted to what Danny wants to do on offense. I mean, a little bit faster. And just, again, I think a little bit new routes. I think once she got over that acclimation period, maybe in the preseason practices and kind of the early non-conference matches, she's really settled in to be able to distribute the ball where she needs to and know what all the hitters need from her too. So I think that Bergen's always been a very calming influence, a very even-keeled player, but she's really found her rhythm and Danny's new kind of, it's not a completely different offense too, but the new wrinkles that have been added to it and the new players that she's been able to adjust to.
Has Nebraska found their hitter opposite of Harper Murray in Virginia Adriano? Is she kind of putting a lock on that job, or is there still quite a bit of back and forth, do you think?
I don't think we haven't seen a lot from Allie Check. I mean, she played a lot more beginning of the year too, but I think just what Virginia's kind of settled in, again, gotten used to the American style of game. And I think that Bergen's found what type of sets that she needs to be able to terminate. She needs a little bit higher, a little bit slower to that right pin, and Virginia can do some stuff with the ball. So I think that, I mean, and plus I think the physicality that she brings at 6'5" is really, I think she's real settled into. I mean, Allie Check is a wonderful player, and when you do get to see her for short stints, she can do some amazing things. But I think that the potential that Adriano has is just very tantalizing and really elevates Nebraska's level as a whole.
Looking ahead to the challenge against Purdue, I mean, you're talking about the 12th ranked team in the country, really a team that, from what John Baylor had told us throughout the year, had been really dinged in the transfer portal. What do you know? What have you seen in Purdue as far as the challenge they'll present on Sunday to the Huskers.
Yeah, they kind of did really have to reinvent themselves. They lost Chloe Chacoin, Eva Hudson, two All-American caliber players left via the transfer portal. They're now at Kentucky and Louisville. They lost a bunch of middle blockers too, but really, I think that they had a player on their roster last year, and Kenna Woolard, who she was playing opposite, moved to her more natural position, as now is averaging like 4-7 kills per set. And so I think she's really kind of flourished being a left side hitter. And then Elkhorn North graduate Grace Heaney, she was out injured last year as well, and was really kind of emerged into the second hitter for Purdue. So I think it's a Dave Shondell coach team. They're very fundamental. They're very disciplined, but they have a number of attackers that really were already on their roster that now are getting a chance to step up and shine because of the roster turnover. I mean, they also lost a libero and a middle blocker to graduation. So, but I think that the culture that they have established with Dave Shondell's been there a long time, and really is built to withstand a roster turnover like they went through. So I think they're going to be a good team, but it's going to revolve around Woolard. And they've got Akasha Anderson, who's a transfer from Oklahoma as well, too. So they got great pin hitters, too. They may not be as strong up the middle as Nebraska, especially. No one's as strong as Nebraska, but I think from the pin hitter, they match up and present problems.
Another couple minutes here with Lincoln Arneal talking Husker volleyball ahead of their match with 12th ranked Purdue on Sunday. At this point, with Penn State falling off as they have, with Izzy Stark not being in the team anymore, Minnesota's dealt with a ton of injuries. This is really one of maybe 2 or 3 more critical matches as far as the Big Ten race is concerned. And that Halloween match at Wisconsin, I think maybe decides this conference. What's your outlook on the conference right now?
It is, Penn State may be down, but then they just swept Wisconsin last night. So
yeah.
Knows what's going on too. And I think, injuries have had a lot to do with it too. And who knows, we don't know how long Charlie Furbringer is going to be out, but I think Penn State, Nebraska thumped them good, and they maybe have been out to kind of do a little corrective action last night after what happened to them last weekend.
Yeah.
So I think Purdue, will be definitely good. Other teams that have really stepped up, you have Indiana, I think, is kind of surprising people. They're the only other team that's undefeated, and they got ranked for the first time, and the highest rank they've ever had in program history this week at 19. So I think Indiana will be a good test. Purdue will be probably one of the toughest tests they have, but Wisconsin will be Wisconsin. They'll be ready for Nebraska when they come to town and to Madison on Halloween too. And Penn State may be out for vengeance too when they play Nebraska on Black Friday. So there'll be some traditional players, and we'll see how Minnesota adapts to losing another outside hitter. But they've struggled against was it UCLA, and so we'll see. But I think Purdue will be one of the toughest ones, and Wisconsin and Indiana and Penn State are probably the toughest 4 that I'm looking at the rest of the way.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you one more, and it's about your athletic exploits, but it's not about the market to market. Monday is the semifinals and the finals of JMSE softball. What are you thinking? Are we going to take it home?
Oh, we got to raise. I got to rest up. Luckily, I don't have to work on Monday, so I will spend a full day. Maybe go get a pedicure, get a foot massage.
Yeah.
We'll come ready to play. We won't hit the batting cages, but I think we'll be locked in mentally, get a good inspirational speech from Jack, and be ready to take care of business.
That's right. The experience is coming to Mahoney Monday night for a championship. Hey, don't pull anything out there. Good luck with your races, and we will stay tuned to all your guys' coverage on Husker Max and on Volleyball State as Nebraska takes on Purdue on Sunday. Thanks again, Lincoln. We'll talk again soon.
You bet. Thanks for having me on.
All right, there goes Lincoln Arneal to market relay out there doing his running thing. And Nate, as Nebraska does look ahead to Purdue, like I mentioned, there's not, if Minnesota, I think they've lost 3 or 4 players to injury, Wisconsin dealing with Charlie Furbringer's injury, Penn State, obviously we saw what happened without Izzy Stark when Nebraska went out there. They have a return match later this season. It's not a given that Nebraska is going to win the Big Ten, but they've got to be the heavy favorite at this point.
Yeah, the odds-on favorite, no question. And if they can get past Purdue on Sunday, you wonder if this is an undefeated season for Nebraska volleyball. Yeah. Let's talk crazy here. I mean, my biggest worry with this team right now is, can you continue to stay at this level? And I keep saying it, and they keep doing it. I don't care if they sweep every match the rest of the way. It's still my worry, because it's just difficult to play this well for this long. But it's about the only question remaining about this bunch.
Yeah, we'll unpack that a little bit maybe when we come back here. Nebraska's undefeated chances and how that maybe does compare and to other teams that have had similar early runs in the season, and what the psychology of that is, and what Nebraska's road looked like. So a little bit more volleyball when we come back. Plus, we'll break down the Nebraska-Maryland football matchup. That's all coming up here on the KLIN Husker Hour.
Homework. Giving you a complete review of the Huskers news this week. This is the KLIN Husker Hour on Lincoln's Husker Radio, 1499.3.
Big thanks to Lincoln Arneal from Volleyball State Podcast and Husker Max. If you missed him, that's okay. You can make sure you're subscribed to the podcast feeds. You can go to Spotify, YouTube Music, Apple Music. You can check KLIN.com. Make sure you're subscribed. Give us a rating, give us a review. We appreciate that. And also, we are up on the StreamYard. You can check us out on the KLIN YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter pages, the Husker Max Facebook page as well. We've got about 40 of our closest friends right there with us as we continue to talk a little volleyball. And Nate, you mentioned how the thought of going undefeated can maybe play against you late in a year with all that pressure mounting. Can they do it? Can they do it? I want to look a little bit closer at that because you have a lot of instances recently where that's been a situation. Like, obviously, you go to Nebraska volleyball back in John Cook's first year. I mean, the parallel there is obvious. First year, national championship undefeated. Danny Busby-Kelly still on track to potentially do the same, which sounds crazy, but it's not crazy at all when you think about it. Last year, Kansas City Chiefs.
Yes.
They go undefeated. I forget what week they played the Bills and finally lost. It was maybe week 12, week 11. And not that they were thinking they were going undefeated, but you look back in 2007, the New England Patriots go undefeated all the way to the Super Bowl. And then and as Kenny Larrabee is flexing over there, the Giants fan, attaboy. Thank you, Eli Manning, American hero. I remember that. And the Patriots, once that game started, all that confidence that they'd been talking with those 2 weeks leading up to that game just went out the window. And all of a sudden they start playing tight. They usually weren't in games where they couldn't move the ball on offense. And it started to work against them.
Yeah.
I don't know that the way that Nebraska is playing is undefeated proof or pressure proof, But I do think it's an interesting approach that Danny Busboom Kelly is taking to be very, not lackadaisical, but she's more hands-off than I think most coaches would be about. I mean, just with the concert last night, players going the night before a match and still coming out and playing. They did their job. They played well, but her approach to this is very different than what I think a lot of coaches would approach this as when you have such a talented team your first year and the undefeated national championship aspirations that they have in front of them as well.
Well, yeah, and Danny has lived in the spotlight, maybe not necessarily, trying for an undefeated season, but she knows the added pressure that surrounds every Husker volleyball player. And you think back to 2 years ago, no, it wasn't an undefeated season, but that team made a surprising run to the national championship match. And the pressure of it seemed like it hit them all at once. Oh my goodness, we could win a national title in a year where nobody was expecting it. But it's something where I think Danny Busboom Kelly feels like there's going to be enough from the outside to keep the heat on her team, to keep the focus where it needs to be as far as just the general pressure that Nebraska volleyball players face, because the backside of the coin of all of that interest and all of that passion is there's expectation there. And it's a unique level of that expectation that a Nebraska volleyball player has to deal with that, frankly, a Texas or a Louisville or a Wisconsin or a Penn State player doesn't have to deal with. And so I think it's sort of a wise coaching move to back off a little bit. Look, this is a driven bunch.
Mm-hmm.
And this culture was built by the people in that locker room. You think of Harper Murray gathering the team immediately upon John Cook telling them, "Hey, I'm going to retire," and saying, "Hey, we're gonna back Danny as hard as we can back her, and we're all gonna stay and we're all gonna work for her." There's already a strong culture in that locker room to keep the focus where it needs to be, and so I think Danny is calculating, look, as a coach, I don't need to put any more heat on these guys. They know what they need to do. I will trust them. And in the end, that will keep them from playing tight because, in athletics, it's much better to be loose than tight. I mean,
yeah.
and as long as there's sort of the counterbalance of they're going to be focused when they need to be focused. They don't need to be focused at 10 o'clock at night on a Thursday thinking, oh my God, are we going to screw this up? So, as long as they're able to show up on Friday and be 100%, it's probably okay to give them that rope and say, and trust them to say, okay, on Thursday night, you're not going to do anything that hurts you on Friday. And so I think it's a means by which Danny is managing the pressure that can mount on you in a situation like this, to be a little looser. I'll be interested to see if that's her approach just moving forward, or if this is very specific to this particular team, because it's a veteran team that has gone to the Final Four twice. And I mean, that's basically everybody on the roster.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned the veteran nature of the team. I mean, you do have the sting of the last couple of seasons in the Final Four, in the national championship, when, this junior class that we've talked about all year, they were there. They saw it happen. They were a big part of how they got there. And they were also a big reason why they didn't get it done, because they weren't playing well in those matches that they ultimately ended up losing against Penn State last year and Texas the year before. But you do have that leadership. You do have that experience that you can draw from with players who not only are they get a lot of hype, but deservedly so, because they are playing at such a high level. Bergen Riley, we talked about when Lincoln was on just last segment. She's the reigning Big Ten setter of the week, and she is, in Lincoln's estimation, who probably knows better than just about anybody, is the best player on this team this year so far. The way that she has distributed everything and kept everything on the rails while they've been trying to find a good hitter opposite Harper Murray and still feeding Harper Murray and Andy Jackson and Rebecca Alec and Taylor Landfair and all the different weapons they have. And to hold off a challenge from Campbell Flynn, as that was a real narrative before the season. There's real competition on this team. There's a real challenge to keep your spot, even if you were a preseason All-American and a National Player of the Year watch list honoree. Like, all of that to say, it's a very unique situation to have all of the hype, to have all of the recent experience, and to still be rolling as much as you are right now. They've gotten fortunate. They haven't had injuries like you've seen with Wisconsin and Minnesota. They haven't had a player leave the team like Penn State, but they've done so well to mix the veterans with some of the newcomers. Danny Busboom-Kelly seems to push all the right buttons. And I don't know that it's going to be a situation where I'm thinking in my head late this season, gosh, I hope they kind of lose this one so that they don't go into the tournament undefeated. Because I do feel like all those things that we're talking about, that does set them up uniquely to be able to handle that challenge, even if everybody's going to be talking about the pressure and thinking about that pressure.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the internal competition of, fighting for your spot, fighting, and that can be the macro of making sure you're still in the starting lineup. It can be the micro of making sure that you're locked in enough to still get sets, to still get opportunities, because that's the sort of thing that keeps you practicing well, even when you're as dominant in competition as this team is. I mean, when you're at your best, you're competing against yourself. You're saying, how can I be my best today, and how can I be my best tomorrow, and not getting seduced by the fact that you just swept somebody. And oh, by the way, all 3 sets last night were not competitive. I mean, there have been 9 straight sets, and probably more, where Nebraska hasn't let somebody get to 20.
Yeah.
I mean, that's steamrolling people. And so it takes a very high level of competitive maturity to stay so focused on yourself and playing well and the task in front of you that you're not worried about that. You say, okay, that's nice. Let me do that to somebody else. Let me keep doing that. How good can I play? And so I think that's another reason why there's enough good pressure on this team. There's good pressure and there's bad pressure. The bad pressure is the external. The bad pressure is, geez, can we get it done? But there are enough good spurs out there as far as, hey, I'm competing against the girls in our gym. I'm competing against the version of myself that I showed 2 weeks ago, that Danny Busboom-Kelly doesn't feel like she has to go to the whip. She doesn't need to have a tight hold on the reins, because there are enough reasons to keep them working the way they need to work.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what they do tomorrow as Nebraska takes on Purdue. It's one of those rare home and then away weekends as they're heading out to West Lafayette for that match tomorrow. Is that on KLIN or just on B?
No, it's on both.
It's on
KLIN and B.
Perfect. Well, yeah, check in right here tomorrow for Nebraska and Purdue as the Huskers try to remain unbeaten. That one's on Peacock, actually. So if you don't have that subscription, the real artists are on the radio, right, Nate?
You're damn right.
All right. Well, we're going to break down Nebraska-Maryland football when we come back. It's a challenge. It's a road game, a true road game for Nebraska football, the first one of the season. We'll see how that goes, and we'll break down what Nebraska can expect from the Terps when we come back here on the KLIN Husker Hour.
All garage sales.
Husker football, basketball, baseball, and beyond. This is the KLIN Husker Hour on 1499.3 KLIN.
All right, let's dig into this matchup as the Huskers are taking on the Terps. Maryland, I don't know if you knew this, Nate, had not trailed all season through their first 5 games until last week's fourth quarter when they finally trailed and ultimately lost 0-0 and 20-3 in the fourth quarter. And then Washington ended up coming back and winning 24-20. Otherwise, Maryland might have been ranked, frankly, this week. But looking at what they do, they don't run the ball very well. That is one thing that sticks out right away when you look at what they've done this season. Just 93 yards per game. That's 128th nationally. It's almost the worst in the country. None of their running backs are averaging better than like 3.5 yards per carry, which really sets up. I mean, it plays to Nebraska's strengths, right? The Black Shirts want you to have to throw the ball, and I think Maryland wants to throw the ball, and yet the Huskers are averaging only 91 yards per game allowed through the air. Just a fascinating strength on strength, really, because I don't know that Maryland is going to try to run the ball. They're going to test this secondary if they don't change things up significantly, and I think that probably favors Nebraska, if you ask me.
Yeah, I think it sets up pretty well. I mean, you've got a true freshman quarterback in Malik Washington, and though he is highly talented, the fact of the matter is there is no run game that you have to worry about. So you can pin your ears back. Now, Washington is kind of mobile, but it's not where he wants to go. It's not what he wants to do. So you can really come after this kid, and you can disguise some blitzes and throw some exotic things at him to really confuse him. And look, if you stop their pass game, first off, you can trust your defensive backs to lock down the receivers if you blitz, if you commit more to the pass rush. But if they don't get it done through the air, they don't get it done offensively. So it's going to be really difficult, I think, for Maryland to move the football, especially as it seems like Nebraska's found a pass rush. You know, I was down on this defensive line. I was really disappointed with Nebraska's defensive line after that Michigan game, but it feels like they've found something. And you thought that there were guys there that could get it done, whether it was Desan McCullough, you know, whether it was Javen Wright, you know, Elijah Judy's really come on the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
You know, there were guys there that could get it. Williams Winery's talent told you he was going to be a factor this year, but it seemed like that bye week was about the best thing for Nebraska, at least on the defensive front, because those guys stepped up in a huge way against Michigan State. I think Michigan State has a better offensive line than Maryland. So the opportunity should be there for Nebraska to cause more havoc. And again, if he's just dropping back, I think Nebraska's in pretty good shape.
Yeah, some of the guys who have come on in that front 7 or front 6, as it were, in the 3-3-5. Javen Wright, last 2 games, 10 tackles each game. Deshaun Singleton, he's the next best in terms of tackles. Vincent Shavers goes 7 tackles, 9 tackles, Michigan State. Rex Guthrie's gotten a lot of play. Williams Winery and Elijah Judy, though, those are, I think, the key. If you have some development on that defensive front, as has been a big talking point this year, replacing Nash and Ty. If Judy and Winery can keep it up, then you really got something. You can mix a little Riley Van Poppel in there, Keona Davis too. Looking at the offense for Nebraska, when they've got the ball and they're going against Maryland, Maryland's strength is in their rushing defense. They give up just 96 yards per game. They're a little bit more susceptible through the air. Again, we're talking about playing to Nebraska's strengths here. Nebraska wants to stop the pass and pass the ball. So I'm gonna harp on this again. I think Nebraska needs to pass to set up the run. Yeah, I want to get Emmett Johnson more than 13 touches in this game, but I want you to do it a little bit more strategically. Get him more screen passes if you're concerned about Maryland's edge rushers, which I think is maybe the strength of their defense. Get a little bit more creative when you're in the red zone. I loved that play that they ran with Heinrich Harburg out there, handing off to Raiola then handing off to Johnson, coming back with Harburg as the lead blocker. Give me more creativity in the red zone, because it got them a touchdown, and they'd really struggled to get across the goal line when they've got in there deep. And then the other thing is, when you have Dylan Raiola facing pressure, if there's another issue with a lot of offensive line struggles in this game, cut down on his reads. Give him one guy to look at. Send everybody over to one side, but then you have Isaiah Hunter or Dane Key on the other, and just set up, okay, we're going to just run a go ball. See if you can win. See if you can find him deep. Get a little bit more out of his head so that he doesn't have to try to process so much if he's running short on time. There's a lot of things that you can do to fix what happened in the middle half of that game last week. It's not all just the wind. The wind was a factor, but there was more to it than that. So I hope to see a lot of improvement on the offensive side of the football after they looked at that film.
Yeah, and the screen game, I think, is really important, and that's been hit or miss for Nebraska the last few years as to whether or not they can run it well. You talk about getting Emmett Johnson involved in the screen game. Get Ja'Cory Barney the football by any means necessary. I mean, throw it to him on the screens. Hell, motion him into the backfield and hand it to him. I don't care. He's your most explosive offensive threat. I'll rip off Nick Saban's line. When it gets close, think players, not plays. Get the damn ball in Ja'Cory Barney's hands. I mean, they don't need to use him at the same rate that Scott Frost used Wandale Robinson. But you do need to have some of those concepts, because Ja'Cory is just so explosive and so dangerous and so elusive. You know, when we saw it in the game against Michigan State. When you're stuck in the mud, get it to your best player and let him do something. And he did it there, and he can keep you from being stuck in the mud and get you going offensively. So just get the ball to two, screens, handoffs, jet sweeps, whatever it takes. Get the ball in his hands, and I think that opens up everything for everybody.
Yeah, the other thing I'll say on the offense, if this is, again, an Elijah Pritchett at left tackle, Gunnar Gatula at right tackle game, that's a second game in a row where you get those guys all the snaps. If you're settling on that pair, then Elijah Pritchett gets a whole game. Gunnar Gatula gets a whole game again on that side as he played left tackle to start the season. That will be another development to watch. How can those guys settle in? Maybe can we have a penalty-free game, Elijah Pritchett? We'll see. Beggars can't be choosers necessarily, but maybe a little bit more progression and confidence building on that offensive line today if Nebraska can get it going and kind of get in their bag play calling wise. All right, when we come back, we'll wrap this thing up, get you ready for the weekend. Obviously, big matchups for football and volleyball coming up. Plus, we'll tell you one of the hottest acts in the country that is coming to Lincoln. And it is very exciting. They've got a former Husker in that act. We'll tell you about that if you missed that news when we come back here to wrap things up on the KLIN Husker Hour on 1400 and 99.3 KLIN.
You're listening talking with current and former Huskers and those that cover the Big Red. This is the KLIN Husker Hour on Lincoln's Husker Radio, 14 KLIN.
Coming this summer to Memorial Stadium. It's not a hot country act. It's not anything like that. No, it is the Savannah Bananas. Nate, they're going to play a couple times in Lincoln, once at Haymarket Park, and once in Memorial Stadium. Are you going to get to go there? Are you looking forward to that?
I don't know. I don't think I'll work it. I mean, I'll work it if they invite me, but it will be awfully strange to see how they wedge a baseball field onto the carpet of Memorial Stadium, because I think the right field line's only going to be 190 feet or something like that.
Yankee Stadium, basically.
Yeah, I mean, basically Yankee Stadium, which, we're only doing it one night. The Yankees somehow have done it for almost 100 seasons.
Yeah, and looking forward to that. That's an act that I've wanted to see for a long time. I mean, Kyle Perry, former Husker, is a member of the Savannah Bananas, so that'll be pretty fun. That's coming in. I forget if it's June or July. I think it's June.
Yeah, it's actually the Saturday of the first weekend of the College World Series. So huge sports week in the state of Nebraska.
There you go. Well, you can go to CWS game on one day and then see the Savannah Bananas the next if you really wanted to. It's a good set. All right, let's give our takes. First, volleyball, Nebraska, Purdue. Who wins? How many sets?
I think Nebraska wins. I think they give a set. Huskers in 4.
I think they sweep. They're just a wagon. You can't stop them. Nebraska sweeps tomorrow. All right, today, Nebraska, Maryland. I'm going to go Huskers 33, Maryland 26. What say you?
I'm in the same neighborhood, especially offensively. 31-14 Huskers.
Ooh.
I just have trouble seeing Maryland move the ball today.
All right, let's see it. It's a 2:30 kickoff. You'll hear pregame coverage right here starting at 10:30 on 1400 KLIN, so making sure you turn down the Peacock, or not, it's not on Peacock. Volleyball's on Peacock tomorrow, but at any rate, turn up the radio, and you will hear the call of the Huskers Radio Network. For Nate, for Lincoln, for Kenny, I'm Cole. Go Big Red.